call to order, roll call. Someone speakers on.
Yeah, we'll find out whose that is in a second, once we hear it, but we're gonna go ahead and do the roll call. Mrs. Birkin?
Here.
Mrs. Schroeder?
Here.
Mr. Medina?
Here.
Mrs. Grove?
Here.
Mrs. Lammle? Absent. Mrs. Lebudzic?
Present.
And Mrs. Petropoulos.
Here, all right, pledge of allegiance.
I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice
for all.
And so introduction of guests.
We don't have any guests, and since we also don't have Mrs. Lammle, our secretary, we are looking for a secretary pro temp.
I will make motion to volunteer, Joanna. I'll second it.
Okay. Mrs. Bergen,
Aye.
Mrs. Schroeder, Mr. Medina, Mrs. Grove,
Aye.
Mrs. Lebudzic,
Aye.
and Mrs. Petropoulos.
Aye, 2.0 public participation, there is no public.
There is no public.
So we're gonna press on 3.0 superintendent's report.
All right, well, welcome, everyone. This is typically our second meeting when we have a study session, but in May, we always end up making it a special meeting because we have personnel who we have usually hired by now that we want to make sure get hired officially so we can get them started. And so that's really why it's a special meeting. But other than that, it really is a study session. We're going to just talk about a couple topics, answer any questions that you may have, and go from there. So my first, actually my only report on here is 3.1, the Smart Social Parent and Digital Citizenship Program. We all know that our kids spend a lot of time online. I read a stat the other day, 43% of a teenager's day is spent in front of a screen. And that counts like being in school and everything. So that's, I mean, it's like a long time, like well over 7 hours a day. And we also know they don't always make some of the best choices, sometimes just because they're kids and they're learning, and other times they don't realize what they're doing or what they're putting on there stays on there forever. Likewise, I know many of you have kids in our schools, and I have school-age kids, and so does Mrs. Nothnagel, and it's a little scary out there sometimes with some of those things. And so this partnership is actually, I would say, more for the parents than it even is for the kids. Smart Social started off as a way to present this information to parents, and they do it in a couple different ways. You can have a speaker come out, and I think they did that in this district like 7 years ago, where they came and talked to parents one time. But you can also subscribe to their online library, where they do at a minimum a monthly live webinar with questions and answers. They oftentimes do one like every 2 weeks, and those are recorded and stay there, and parents can go back and see them at any time, even if they're not available for that webinar. I've watched a few of them over the last year and a half. I started talking to them about this time last year, and was still trying to decide if it was worth the investment. But we have had a couple incidents this year with students ranging all the way from down to first grade up to junior high, where parents just had no clue that this was even an option that their kids could be doing. So I do think it's something we want to go ahead and invest in, especially now we are able to get the cost kind of front loaded to this year, and still use it in our ESSER money. And so I think it's a wise use of some of that money to determine if it's something our parents are going to use. I can track to see how many of our parents go on. I can track to see what our kids are viewing on this dashboard. And so we'll be able to see if it's really worth it. And we'll definitely survey the parents to see, like, is this giving you information that you didn't know? Did you, even if you signed on, was it a waste of time? But I've learned stuff going on there. So I just think it's something that we don't have to do for our families, but I think especially with what's going on, it'd be a really good investment to see. Yes, Ms. Girl.
I was reading it and it said that it's for grade 5 through 12 though.
Yes.
There's no option.
And you can definitely like have all of our kids like view it, but most of this stuff is for the older kids and our parents. If you have a first grade parent, you're eventually going to have a fifth grader. So it's something that's going to be available to all of ours, but it's specifically designed for the kids starting in like fifth grade.
Do they have anything for younger students?
Not at this time. But again, you get to control it at home. So if you say, oh, like I want my kid to look at this, you can go ahead, you'll have the login information for that.
What would be the rollout process of this to like educate parents on
Yeah.
the uses of it and?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is, number one, to send it to everybody, to get that information out, let them start getting on it, and then to host a couple parent nights where they can come and ask questions, or even if I host like a live Zoom call, and just really kind of talk to them about it. It's not something necessarily we're looking to do in the classroom and to add another thing. It's something they would do outside, but we want to make sure that they're aware of it and what's on there. Because I know as a parent, if I just get an email home and like don't have a lot of time, I'm not going really into detail to see what that is. So just giving them options of what's out there, I think is really important
Yeah, I mean,
to
just
highlight a few of these.
to
things.
pay for something and then like not have them come out and talk to
Exactly.
parents or roll out to show how valuable of a resource it is, I feel like would be a moot point of paying for it, so. Hopefully, even at conference nights when
Yep.
everyone's here or open house, have like a little station where
Yep.
someone is explaining it and. This can help you, maybe you have a first grader who's not on a digital platform that you think, but even Roblox.
Mhm.
Like there's messaging on there, there's other stuff, even like kids TikTok and
Yeah.
stuff like
And
that.
one of the first things I pulled up was just a fact sheet with all the things that like kids go on, and Roblox, Minecraft were all on there, just like there's plenty of good things. And that's
Yeah.
what I like about this. It's not just trying to say like, it's all dangerous.
Yeah.
But I think it takes a good approach of here is what you need to know as a parent, like talk to your kid about someone messages you, or even if you like don't respond back, like those types of things that it's having a conversation about. Any other questions on
What
that?
kind of access are we giving the parents? Cause I know I was like looking at their website and there's like VIP or something. Is that what everyone gets?
Yes, yeah. So we right now are just on a demo pass where I just have access to it. But eventually we'd have logins for all of our families. Like I had to let them know how many families we had. And we would get that as soon as we sign the official contract. So, and I have a follow-up meeting with them, I think Thursday morning.
When the link you sent, is that what's just like free to everyone?
Correct. Yes. Yeah. So there's a lot more in depth. And again, if you want to take a look at it, okay. Yeah.
I didn't know if that-
Congratulations. VIP.
Yeah. I know, it should be. I just watched the video thinking about it.
Yeah, it
Very
should.
informed parent.
Yes. Yeah. You should have access to everything they have. And I really think the thing that most parents would go on are those like live chats that they have, not necessarily live, but when they pop them up and they're recorded for them later. I see that being the most useful thing.
Mhm.
So
Do we pay per family?
you tell them how many kids you have enrolled, doesn't matter if it's pre-K or what, and then they balance it. And then I did like a podcast with them just within the last few weeks to get a few more dollars knocked down. So yeah, it was fine. But yeah, so.
I love it. It's incredible.
Yeah, and again, if it's something we find, even with publicizing and everything, nobody is using it. Then we just don't write it into the regular budget the following year. So,
Yeah, I think that just seeing
Yeah.
how much people access it is probably key.
Yeah.
Kind of walking the-
Yeah. Yeah, and I think, I mean, obviously we'll push big in August, September, but like January when they come back, like reminding people again and just not letting it just sit there. So.
Especially these things.
Oh, yes, they do. Yes, they do. Think you might not have had that phone in fifth or sixth graders' hands, and then all of a sudden they do. So, yeah, it's a big deal. So,
And this is a 1 year.
yes, that's the 1 year. Any other questions on Smart Social? Yeah, yep. All right.
4.0 curriculum directors update.
So 4.1, update on future report cards. I do have a presentation that will be on the back board there. It's just a brief presentation.
Kathy, can you just make sure your screen gets on that?
And you do have the printout of the presentation in front of you at your seat this evening. Okay, so I'm going to share just some changes that we're recommending for implementation for report cards next year. And just to start, just some reasons why we want to make the adjustments. The first one is really reporting changes due to the curriculum and adoptions / developments this year. The ELA curriculum being one of them. Currently, we report out reading and writing as separate grades. And then language arts and phonics and all of these separate components, but HMH is the resource that we adopted. Has a lot of that embedded. So we're going to make some recommendations, changes to support communicating towards the curriculum and the resources that we are going to be implementing next year. We definitely want all of our report cards to be aligned across the district within the buildings and what we report to the state. So I've done some work to ensure that we've looked at that consistency, and then the recommendations are really stemming from that to make sure that they have that alignment. And then number 3 is just that consistent and clear communication with parents and families. So next year we will have students that are in different.
It is, Bonnie. Come on in. You are.
Oh, it's a cookie exchange. Come on in.
Sorry, no.
Yeah.
So we want to make sure that we're consistent with what we're communicating to our families, especially within each building at each grade level, but then also across the building. So with special education programming changing, we will have some students that homeschool is at Ridge Lawn, but they will be serving school at Ridge Central and vice versa. So we want to make sure that there's consistency and all of what we're communicating to our parents is very clear. And that was something that the board had really talked about when we had started this conversation about grading several months ago. So these are the final changes based on the feedback and the input from the board when we talked about that. These were, this was a large discussion that we had at a board meeting, but then no changes were made this year just because we had already reported out one trimester. We want to start the year fresh with these changes and be able to communicate these not only to our teachers so that they can accurately report, but then also give that consistency to the parents from trimester to trimester. One of the big things that I do want to recognize that the board had noticed is that kindergarten, that highest grade, if you remember, used to be an S+, but every other grade scale had an E as the highest, which was excellent. So we did make that change. If you remember in the grading scale for kindergarten, there was also like an X and like a C, and we were kind of questioning like, what are these all for? And after digging, we really felt that if it's not going to be covered that trimester, because it is a standards-based report card, that we just want to leave it blank just so parents know that there was no assessment for that specific standard. And we clarified and cleared up some things with pass and fail, the conduct grades, making sure that those match that kindergarten scale so that there's clear communication overall. And then here are the adjustments to the actual grades, the grade report cards. So there are no adjustments for kindergarten, but for first grade, we are going to remove the course spelling, as spelling grades will be under language arts. It's not that we're not going to encourage spelling. It is part of that literacy plan that the state has come out with that we do feel is a huge component of reading and writing. But it is clearly communicated for the state courses to have that language arts code aligned to it. We're going to remove penmanship. Again, this isn't to say that it's not something that we don't think is important, but it is not something that we have a direct curriculum for. It's something that's embedded in our foundations resource that we use in K4. And then currently we report on our report cards a grade for English. English is a very outdated way of stating the course of writing. So we want to update that to align that to the current course code at the state, which is called writing. And then a remove of study skills. Again, this is something we don't have a rubric for, and we feel that it's best to just communicate the things that we're currently using resources for and are able to provide assessments. The adjustments to third grade look somewhat similar to the first through second, except for the big two are just that changing English to writing and then removing study skills. And then as you are aware, one of the big changes to the adjustment for the 6th through 8th grade is changing that course code. We currently have 2 separate grades, physical education and health. And now with the curriculum changes for next year, we're going to have that structure where the kids will have physical education and health through a different structure and process based on the work that the PE health teachers did this year. And then just as a heads up, future conversations that we want to make the board aware of. Dr. Thorns and I will be looking into further grades for Smart Lab and library. Currently, we do give grades in library, but we don't in Smart Lab. And we know that there was a lot of history when the board decided to adopt the Smart Labs several years ago, and why that wasn't a grade on the report card at the elementary. It is at the junior high. So we want to do some digging. We want to learn. We want to kind of see what other districts are doing. We want to get some more information and then present to the board next year some different options and really have a conversation at a study session about what this looks like and what this entails in order to move forward with a final recommendation, which would then be implemented the following year. Any questions?
Several.
Of
Of course, right.
Not
Okay, so, still not covered at this time is only in kindergarten, and I ran into a snafu with that with my son's education.
Mhm.
Where kind of an arbitrary grade was given because the skill wasn't fully vetted, so how will that be addressed in the higher grades?
Yes, so I think if I know what you might be talking about, we are currently working on science and social studies. And I'm currently doing a lot of research, and actually the building administrators have helped with their team leaders, getting an idea of when science and social studies is being taught and which trimesters. It's currently kind of all over the place and something that is not, it is on my radar. So this summer, I will be creating pacing guides that will communicate what units of study for science and social studies will be done each trimester in each grade level, so that we can clearly communicate to every single parent a science and a social studies grade with enough content behind that grade. There is due to an increase in like Smart Lab, library, all of that, the science and social studies grades, we used to have separate sections of those 30 minutes and 30 minutes. But now it's one time a week. So unfortunately, that transition happened prior to me becoming a curriculum director. So there wasn't guidance that was really given to say what you teach during that 30 minutes, 5 days a week. So it was unfortunately left up to the teachers, and not to their fault. They just did their best to kind of do
Squeeze
units.
in what they could.
Yeah, and absolutely. And the pacing guides that we created way back when I first started 7 years ago for science, it included 180 days of instruction at 30 minutes for science. And it's unrealistic what our current scope is. So
Especially if you're jamming both in.
correct, exactly. So we would realistically only expect the teachers to get through half, and which half do they choose? So we don't want them to have to make that decision. We definitely, as a district, want to provide that information to them. So the pacing guides and scope and sequences, along with what trimesters they should be doing those in, will be sent to the teachers for the start of next year, so that beyond kindergarten, all of those academic areas will be covered. In kindergarten, it's specific skill-based report card, if you remember. And so there's certain skills that they don't get to until the trimester 3, when they're developmentally ready for that. Counting to 100 isn't an expectation we would have of our kindergartners in the first trimester, but by the third trimester, we would definitely hope that they were working towards that. So we'd be able to communicate that better.
We're doing a grade for writing, so is there a language art grade or reading grade, or is it all encompassed into writing?
So our recommendation is to have all 3 separate. So we would
Okay,
have a
that's-
reading grade. And the big thing is, when we talked about this, because we did talk about, do we want to wrap it all up into one? Because the state does have a course code that says reading and writing and all of that put together. But we really considered our parents, our parent community, needing to know specifically how is my child doing reading? How is my child doing in writing? And then language arts would be phonics. So you have phonemic awareness, phonics, and we do that K-4 with foundations. And then for 5th grade, using the actual new the new resource, they'll be able to have foundational skills, including spelling, things like that.
So language arts would be the spelling then.
Correct,
Right,
yep.
okay.
And at the junior high, I just want to always clarify, because there is always differences there. Our current way of reporting to the parents, because that's a block of time of 84 minutes at our junior high, on the report card, it reports out reading/language arts, which is an all-encompassing of reading, writing, and then any grammar, phonics, word study type things that they're doing at the junior high.
Okay, and then that clears it up, because I feel like just writing does not really show like, where's my kid at reading grade level?
Correct.
Last question, and this does not really have to do with the report card, but kind of connected. You know, in the intermediate 3rd through 5th grade level, it is A through F, okay? But a 3rd grader does not get honor roll. And I was just curious why that was. If they're on this scale and they're not on the excellent whatever, why don't 3rd graders get the high honor roll if they're getting straight A's, if they're being assessed in the same manner as the 4th and 5th grade? Why wouldn't they be included in this populace? Like, that was like an occurrence. My son's in 3rd grade and he got straight A's and he was like, oh, I guess I don't get an award. And I'm like, oh, honey, it'll be next year. But when I look at this, it just doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
And I honestly would have to look into the history of who
Why we went that
decides
route.
that. I don't know if it's a local decision for when you determine the high honor roll, or if there's guidance somewhere on that.
I'm
not-
assuming that was something locally decided here.
Yeah.
But it's something we can put on another agenda sometime to talk
Yeah,
about.
I just feel like if they're being evaluated in the same manner as the 4th and 5th, and they're getting that letter grade as opposed to an E or an S, which is a broad scale, if you will.
Right,
You know, I don't see why they wouldn't be included in the higher honor roll. Why not honor all kids,
mhm.
you know, who are up there? And not to diminish, if you're getting a B, it doesn't mean anything bad, but you know, if you do have someone who's doing that, I just feel like if they're being graded on the same scale, why wouldn't we just include them?
I did take note as well. so-
Okay.
That's it.
I like that.
What other questions?
I wrote it down.
That's the same problem she had. I talked so much. Vaccinated with a phonograph needle, man.
Right, wait, now I remember. The smart lab in the library grade in the elementary school. Is it similar functioning like art and music where the teacher drops off for class and then they leave? Or is the teacher present in library and the teacher is present in smart lab?
Correct, the latter. The teacher, the general education homeroom teacher is in both of those settings. The students go to Smart Lab twice a week and to library once a week.
So who's responsible for the grade then? Would it be the classroom teacher or the library?
So
Or
the
Smart Lab
library, the library teacher gives the library grade.
What about Smart Lab?
There is no grade currently given at the elementary. At the junior high, it is an encore class.
Yeah, I know.
The general education homeroom teacher does not attend Smart Lab at the junior high. The students get a 3rd credit in their rotation of their year.
So then would it be a responsibility of the Smart Lab teacher to give them a grade if that's part of the future thing, or is that a future conversation?
That's a future
Yeah.
conversation.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Mhm.
So the librarian gives the library grade
Mhm.
for everybody in the school.
Mhm. Except for pre-K.
Based off of a matrix?
Based off of conduct?
Well, they do get a conduct grade also, just like your specials do at the elementary. So they have a PE grade and a conduct grade and art grade. They have a library grade and a conduct grade. I'm meeting with the librarians on Thursday of next week, to start conversations to get a better idea so that that information can better help our future conversation.
And we really feel that both of these are really a philosophical, like, the board should be making a decision of what route we want to go. And Megan and I just don't feel we have enough information to give you everything at this point. So we want to make that a full separate discussion and be able to really come to a determination.
And it's important to know that this Smart Lab and library grade conversation would just specifically be K-5. The library and the Smart Lab at the junior high are very different than the elementary.
I do know, my daughter's school, she goes to the parochial school, but their library grade is based off of a library project every trimester. So they have a trimester long project that they work on. And it's essentially a pass fail, like as long as you turn it in, you get your credit for that grade. But it's reading a book and it has to be over 200 pages for like the 4th grade level. And then they have to read a book and then do some sort of book report on it. And they had like made t-shirts, which like gave different things and stuff like that. It's a different project every trimester, but there's only one, so it's not. here's a book to read in 2 weeks and write a big huge report. But that's just like kind of like an idea of what a different
Yeah.
school is doing and something that I don't know, if the teachers, you don't want to put a bunch of projects on a teacher, or they do a presentation on it. I know that she had to present, like she wore her t-shirt to school and had to explain her book. And then like, okay, I read this book, it's by this person, this was the plot, and she had like different things on different, like it was the arm, the back and everything, and she did this, and she had to present it. So it was just, and then it was just pass fail, so she wasn't worried about getting an A or whatever, it was just read the book and do the work and pass.
Thank you.
Mhm.
I was curious about, report cards, when are those available like online for parents to see?
Are you talking grade level?
Yeah.
Yeah, sixth grade, we
Oh,
opened it for the
junior.
junior high, yes, yeah.
What other questions?
Math and ELA update, 4.2, is that still you? All right.
So, okay, 4.2, math and ELA data update. So in your board packet, you do have two student growth summary reports. I did ensure to at the top, if you can see, it might have good. Okay, you might want to look in your report card presentation package just to make sure that it's in there, but at the top, I had designated the specific years because we really wanted to highlight the fall to spring data from 22-23 versus the fall to spring data from 23 to 24. Highlighting specifically the growth and the achievement. Now, if you do remember, you don't see 8th grade on this report because our 8th grade students do not take the MWEA math in the spring. They do take fall and winter, so that data is available, but it's not able to be compared in this growth. So the blue is in fact our student growth,
It's not-
and I'm sorry.
They don't get it in
Sorry.
color.
The bar and the graph is our observed student growth. The diamond is what we were expected to grow. So if you kind of can do a side by side, you'll notice that we did in 22-23 not quite meet the bars or the diamonds, but in the 23-24, very happy and proud to show that in most grade levels, we not only reached that diamond, but in some even exceeded that growth expectation. So, and that's in math and in reading, better growth than last year, but just kind of hovering in some of those areas. So in the actual agenda that you have with the summation, you'll see the specific numbers. I'm very happy to report that for growth in math last year, we were only at the 28th percentile, and this year we're at the 87th. So that means 87% of our students grew or had that growth. And then in reading, we were at the 28th percentile in growth, and this year we're in the 49th. And then our achievement percentiles have grown as well. This year in math, we went up 20 percentile points in math and 10 in reading. So we were able to share this data with the staff last week at the status of the district presentations. Also, I shared data at the DMLT meeting specific to the work that the DMLT teachers have been doing as well. So very proud of the work that the teachers have been doing, our math coaches with implementation of the resource, the new resources, even the knowledge that the teachers are gaining towards ELA implementation. And we're excited to see next year as we implement a new resource, these numbers reflect the math, because we truly believe it's the teachers and the new resources that have increased math so significantly.
And I will say, this is our second year with the math implementation. So although we expect to see our reading scores go up next year, we don't expect, unfortunately, it to be the huge jump yet. It's people getting used to it, continuing their professional development before they really hit their stride. Because obviously our teachers showed in math when they're working really hard and with the students, and it's coming together. And we really hope we'll see the same in ELA when we're all moving towards the same goal. But I do think it's going to still take some time before we're there. But in 2 years, I expect to see the same type of growth.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I do remember before when we were talking about testing, isn't the test in 4th grade different? Wasn't that why it was like the wasn't stuff out loud before and then it isn't? Is that why there was like, it's third, okay. I do remember before there was like a
Yeah.
dip and I feel like there's a fourth grade dip, it looks like, and I thought. Is it not reading the questions at this point and they're on their own? So, okay, thank you.
Megan, this is fantastic. I mean, although you're not the one doing it,
You're the pilot.
you're the pilot. And congrats to the teachers, I mean. Not just as a parent, but as a board member, like I just feel so proud looking at these numbers.
Mhm.
It's absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, same. Yeah, they have really, the teachers have really worked hard. We implemented this year pacing guides, which if you've been in education, it kind of tells you where you should be at. It's that constant pulse. And that's pressure. I know we were talking about that with ELA even when I shared that there's some pressure there. Like, what if I want to be responsive to my students and if they're getting it or not getting it, but it's also a goal line. And it got us further this year than it did the first year of implementation. Students are actually getting through that complete curriculum because they see the end and they know where they should be, which I think has truly helped. Our students were more prepared because those teachers put so much effort in to check and balance and have conversations with each other and their coaches, especially when it came to math. And the DMLT, the district math leadership team that we've had in the district for several years, the data that I shared with them was their work because they've been doing a lot of learning about a good math teaching classroom, and their scores are even higher than those teachers that are not part of the DMLT. So it just was something to constantly celebrate their hard work that they have put into staying after school and learning about, best practices in a math classroom. And we want to replicate that, a lot of these same things in the ELA classrooms as well as we roll that out. And data does show that when you implement a new resource, it's called like a implementation slump or, and usually
Right.
the first couple of years, your data goes down. But we didn't see that. We just continued to see growth and it's so exciting. It's really exciting to see.
Well, I like that part that you said responsiveness, because I mean, coverage is not the same as learning. And
Correct.
I think about that when that social studies kind of science thing came up, I felt, teachers are being responsive to the class and if they're not having enough time. So hopefully whatever the pacing guides or whatever can really help teachers understand where they should be and what they can cover for those areas as well. But that responsiveness, if no one in the class is getting it, moving on doesn't behoove anyone,
Right.
it's so. Covering everything is not the same as covering it well.
Right, exactly.
And
Yeah.
having some response from the kids where they have some understanding.
For the pacing guide, the kids are able to see what's coming up in their learning throughout the year.
The pacing guides that the students have not seen, the pacing guides that I created, it would be pretty much like a different language because it's just like the standards and the codes for those. It wouldn't make much sense. But that's definitely something that we can consider sharing with or posting on the.
Like almost like an overview,
Yeah.
like for a second grader, here's some of the
Syllabus.
things we're gonna learn about this year, and
Yeah.
I think that's always a good thing.
It'd be a nice check-in point for parents too.
Like what math skills are we getting to?
Asking their kids about and.
Not, how is school? Fine, okay.
Yeah, I would love to know
Jim.
more about what my kids are learning and how I can help them at home,
Right.
especially at the middle school level.
Well, even if there was how now we have curriculum guides available to staff, even if there was some type of click on. Like quasi syllabus, like these are the skills that are attempted to be covered first semester, like target learning points or whatever. And I mean, obviously anyone can go to the Common Core online, but that doesn't mean that those are the ones that we have decided we're going to do in those levels. And unless you're a teacher, I don't know that you would even
Mhm.
know like, oh, I'm gonna look here, but I mean, maybe, but.
Yeah, I can definitely put some, I'm sorry. go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say, not to play like devil's advocate, but I feel like leaving too much though also leaves parents open to criticize teachers for not,
Yeah.
doing this and doing that and like,
Well, and
being
that's-
like, well, you're supposed to be teaching this week, what happened?
Well, and I think that just like an overview of,
Yeah.
of the overview of the trimester, like the goals of the trimester, because even if you're a parent who has like a mathematical savant, you know, they always wonder like, when are they getting to this and this and this? So
Yeah.
that might be,
Well, even like at the younger levels, you know, still even in first grade, Zeke is receiving like a blip. Just we're doing this in math and this and this, and that satisfies me, and we could talk about it for the week.
Got that in second grade too.
Alright.
like a little
This is what we're doing.
newsletter.
This is
Yeah,
what
it's
we're
like,
doing.
yeah, it's like a new.
I feel like they definitely do that at least in the lower,
Yeah.
like pre-K, like this is the goals of the week and this is what we're
Don't forget
doing.
to send your kid with.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can put some different things together and.
Yeah, we can take a look.
Nor are we looking to add extra
Work.
but, you know, just to keep the parents updated. involved.
Do teachers use Google Classroom a lot, like in the middle school thing?
In the junior high, they do have Google Classrooms. If you're thinking from a parent
I
perspective.
know that it's like garbage from the
Yeah.
parents, but- so I didn't know if there was a way to make that more interactive or better, or get them like into the Google Classroom somehow, so like, I know I post every single day, like what we did in class. And would be super helpful for parents to be like, hey, did you get this done? Or like reminders of homework tonight, but only the kids can see it, you know? So it'd be nice.
Well, I
if
feel like we have
somehow parents
Dojo, so
could-
sometimes people press out stuff on Dojo, like things going on, or they'll share a photo. But I don't know that there's a level of consistency with it, and often teachers will do like a classroom newsletter, like we said. But again, I'm not trying to add more to the plate of anyone.
Well, something I do anyways for kids, but just
Yeah.
if there's a better parent access to it,
Or like
that'd
a
be helpful.
parent Google Classroom.
Right, because they do have like add parent and the parent can join your Google Classroom,
Yeah,
they
but
get like a
that's-
weekly wrap up of things, it's not very helpful if you're like.
No, it's just like so-and-so, this assignment is due this date or this date. There's not a lot.
And I will, whatever it is that we decide on the syllabus or the goals, we do have our district website. And so that can definitely all be added there. And then we can, I can do a Class Dojo share out, you know, please check out the website for general guidance on what each grade level curriculum is covering, is to start, you know, thinking about that.
I think that
I was
would
just more
provide,
You and your parent, you're saying as a parent,
yeah.
I know what's going on at the middle school, like teachers do post it, but there's, how do you get that to parents?
Mhm.
This is something I'm sure they're already doing.
Yeah, I feel like adding like something weekly or whatever that is a lot to add to a teacher's plate. So I don't know, it would be amazing though. I agree. Like I send a monthly calendar out as a
I do
teacher,
monthly
so.
newsletter as well, but
Yeah.
I'm saying I already post it every day for the
Mhm.
students, if we can somehow get the parents to see it.
But I think even having just like a skeleton form of like in third grade, we'll be covering these skills.
Mhm.
Just
Yeah,
like
definitely.
no date, like doesn't have to be dates or whatever, just an idea of parents know what's going on. But again, all kind of chalk on the board right now,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, we'll flush it out.
And I feel like the younger levels don't use Google Classroom or
No.
things like that, so.
I'll see.
Really?
Really?
I'm just working on some slides. For Smart Lab.
Mhm.
Got anything else, Mrs. Nagel?
No.
Okay, I'm actually going to throw an other in there.
Did here, I don't know who put this together, but.
I know it's not in there. I didn't have the other until Friday night, when we got the information. I was down in Springfield a couple weeks ago, meeting with our state superintendent, and the Illinois State Board had shared that there was all of a sudden federal money for pre-K that was just kind of sitting there, and they said, watch for an email to come out. Sure enough, Wednesday morning, I'd given Kathy and Fran a heads up, but sure enough, the email came Wednesday morning, said, say one time, I think they called it a hardship waiver or something. And basically then they followed up with a phone call and said, please apply. And Fran and Kathy jumped on that, as they always do, and apply. And Kathy, how much did we get for the pre-K program?
122,000.
Yeah, girl.
So by Kathy and Fran like jumping on it, within a week, we got a letter Friday night, I think it was, it said you've been awarded your 122,000. There was very
Okay.
specific things that you could use that for. We were able to use that as some salaries, I think we covered, as well as the construction of those classrooms. Is that correct?
Actually, the bulk of it is going to be to repair the pre-K surface over here in Bridge Central. Their playground that was only installed like 5 years ago. It's really in bad shape, which is very unfortunate. And so we got on the phone with the architect and got a square footage price, and he's like, okay, put in this, and they granted it. And so hopefully we'll be able to get that done by the end of summer.
So the nice thing is that even though that's not very exciting, like, oh, we get to replace the floor of a playground or pay construction costs. That's now money that we don't have to take from somewhere else, that we can use that money for even more exciting stuff. So I just wanted to thank Kathy and Fran for being on top of that. And I mean, there's lots of districts who didn't fill it out and lost out on a lot of money.
If
So
anyone's gonna trip on a divot, it's gonna be a pre-K kid. So just like,
they also bounce back very fast.
after a Band-Aid, they're healed.
Yeah.
All right, 5.1.
Yes, we had talked at our last meeting about the potential of adding an additional second grade teacher at Ridge Lawn. And then, so then I'm asking for approval to do that.
For a motion.
All right, go ahead and call the roll. Mrs. Birkin?
Aye.
Mrs. Schroeder? Mr. Medina?
Aye.
Mrs. Grove?
Aye.
Mrs. Lammle?
Yeah.
Absent. Mrs. Lebudzick?
I,
And Mrs. Petropoulos?
Aye. All right, so then now we will be,
Yes, we are going to adjourn to closed session for the discussion of employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees of the public body or legal counsel for the public body, including hearing testimony on a complaint lodged against an employee of the public body or against legal counsel for the public body to determine its validity. We are also going to go in for the discussion of collective negotiating matters between the public body, its employees or representatives for deliberations concerning salary schedules for one or more classes of employees. And the discussion of litigation when an action against, affecting, or on behalf of the particular public body has been filed and is pending before a court or administrative tribunal, or when the public body finds that an action is probable or imminent, in which case the basis for the finding shall be recorded and entered into the minutes of the closed meeting as defined in section 2C11. We will not be discussing any discipline or security matters during this meeting. We get a motion to go into closed session.
Make the motion.
Mr. Medina?
Aye.
Mrs. Grove?
Aye.
Mrs. Lebudzick?
I.
Mrs. Birkin?
Aye.
Mrs. Schroeder? And Mrs. Petropoulos?
aye.
All right, 7:13. Bonnie, thanks for coming to hang out.